I wasn't supposed to be home that early. Usually, Thursdays ran late, traffic after the Peninsula meetings, sometimes dinner with a client, or just a stop at the gym to burn off the tension. But that day, the quarterly review wrapped ahead of schedule. No delays, no traffic. Just me, alone in my car, with a weird impulse to head straight home. I even ignored a call from Jeff, who wanted to grab a drink downtown. For whatever reason, I had this itch, the kind that makes no logical sense, but you can't shake it. Maybe I missed her. Or maybe, deep down, I already knew something was off. When I pulled into the driveway, everything looked normal. The porch light wasn't on yet, but the house had that quiet, end-of-day stillness. Paige's car was in the driveway, angled slightly off-center like she was in a hurry when she got home. I remember thinking that was unusual. She was always meticulous about that kind of thing. I walked up the front steps slowly, fishing my keys from my jacket. Even the lock seemed slower than usual. Dicky. I pushed open the door and stepped into the foyer, greeted by the faint hum of the dishwasher and the soft ticking of the wall clock. Our house had always been calm. Minimal decor, warm lighting, clean counters, but now it felt too calm. Artificial, almost, like someone had pressed pause just before I walked in. That's when I saw it. A jacket, men's, draped casually over the back of one of our dining chairs. It wasn't mine. I hadn't worn anything that shade of navy in years. At first, I told myself maybe it was hers. Maybe she'd borrowed something from wardrobe or dry cleaning or a friend. But then I noticed the stitching. A set of initials embroidered just above the pocket. M.R. Whoever it belonged to, he wasn't hiding. Monogramming is a statement. Intentional. My pulse jumped, but I didn't react. I just stood there, letting my eyes wander across the rest of the room. 2 wine glasses on the kitchen island. One still swirling with a deep red, the other halfway empty. The cork sat beside the bottle, and that's when my stomach dropped. It was the 2012 Barolo we'd picked up in Napa last summer. The one page said we should save for something worth remembering. It was open, breathing. Something about that crushed me more than the jacket. The glasses were close together. Not an accident. Paige never placed things haphazardly. Not wine glasses, not silverware, not her stories. She moved through life with precision. This looked like the kind of scene someone tried to erase mid-sentence. I took a step further into the house. The hardwood floor creaked softly beneath my shoes. I wasn't trying to sneak, but I wasn't exactly making noise, either. That's when I caught the scent. Cologne. Sharp. Clean. Not mine. It hung in the hallway like a fog that hadn't yet cleared. That mix of amber and citrus. It wasn't a cheap DR** store spray. It was designer. It clung to the air like skin cells and secrets. I moved toward the bathroom. The door was wide open, the light off, but the glass shower walls were still streaked with condensation. Steam curled around the edges of the mirror. Someone had used it moments ago. I stared at my own reflection. My jaw was clenched, throat dry, chest tightening like a slow-motion panic attack. I wasn't sure what I expected to find next. A sock on the floor? A pair of cufflinks? A stranger stepping out of the guest room with wet hair and a smile? Instead, I heard her voice. "Hey!" Paige called out from down the hall, too brightly, too fast. "You're back early." I turned to see her coming toward me, towel in hand, cheeks flushed. She looked startled. That's the best word I can think of. Startled, not scared, not guilty, but like someone caught mid-rehearsal. "I didn't think your meeting would be done until after 8, she added, brushing a damp strand of hair behind her ear. "Everything okay?" I nodded slowly, still taking her in. She was wearing a loose, off-the-shoulder sweater, the one she usually reserved for cozy nights in, but she had on makeup. Not leftover makeup from the day. This was fresh, intentional. Her eyes were lined. Her lips were glossy. Her skin glowed. "I got out early," I said. My voice came out flat, too calm. "Figured I'd surprise you." "Oh." Her smile flickered. "Well, surprise." She started walking back toward the kitchen like she needed a task, a way to fill the silence between us. "I had a work thing." Just my boss. He dropped by for a quick check-in. Nothing major. I followed her with my eyes but didn't move. She gathered the glasses too quickly, like they were evidence. She moved the wine bottle to the sink, grabbed the cork like she planned to seal it back up. I watched her hands, they were slightly shaky. That's rare for her. I thought you said your boss was flying to Denver this week, I said, testing her story, barely keeping the edge out of my voice. Oh, he was. Plans changed. She didn't look at me as she said it. She picked up the monogram jacket and turned toward the hallway. He left this behind. I was going to drop it off tomorrow. She disappeared into the guest room. I heard the door click shut, then lock. And that's when it landed. Heavy. Certain. This wasn't the first time. I didn't say anything else. I just stood there, my hands in my pockets, heart pounding behind my ribs like it was trying to warn me of something I already knew. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. Every detail, the jacket, the wine, the towel on the counter, it all felt curated, edited, like I'd walked into a set, not a home. Later that night, I tried to convince myself I was overthinking. I stared at the TV while Paige sat beside me, legs folded under her, laptop open, pretending to answer emails. She was quieter than usual, but not apologetic. There was no explanation, no confession, just silence and the occasional flick of her fingers across the keyboard. We didn't talk about the jacket, or the wine, or the locked door, but in my mind I started doing the math. The times she took her phone into the bathroom and stayed there too long. The nights she came home from yoga with fresh makeup and a glow that didn't come from downward dog. The new perfume she started wearing just for the gym. The mileage on her car. The late Uber rides logged on our shared account. The smart lock history showing late-night entries. The changes in her tone, her timing, her touch. All the little things I'd noticed and brushed off. And now I couldn't stop replaying them in reverse. Like watching a video rewind in slow motion. Each red flag unrolling itself from the lie I'd wrapped around it. Paige leaned over at one point and kissed my cheek. "Glad you're home," she said softly. I turned to look at her. She smiled. That same careful smile she'd been giving me for weeks. The one that no longer reached her eyes. "Me too," I lied. But the truth was already unraveling. That night I couldn't sleep. Paige had dozed off easily, or at least she pretended to. She lay curled on her side, her back facing me, her breathing deep and steady. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, my arms crossed behind my head, feeling every detail of the silence around me. No music playing from her side of the bed. No idle scrolling on her phone. Just a stillness that felt too rehearsed to be real. My mind kept looping through the details. The jacket, the wine, the damp glass, that locked guest room. Everything about it screamed of someone who thought they'd cleaned up just enough, but not for someone who knew what to look for. The truth is, you don't have to catch someone red-handed. Sometimes you just need to step back far enough to see the pattern. And the patterns were there. They had been for a while. At first, they were easy to ignore. Her phone always flipped screen down when we were together. A new passcode she never mentioned. The sudden, urgent need to take calls outside, in the garage or on the patio with the door quietly shut behind her. Then came the perfume. Paige was never a scent person. One small bottle of something floral she'd had for years. Then suddenly it was muskier. More adult. She said it was clean girl energy for workouts. A gym thing. I let it go. The gym. That was another thing. She'd always hated it. Claimed treadmills were designed by sociopaths and that sweating should be left to saunas and dance floors. Then out of nowhere, she was doing hot yoga 3 nights a week. At first it was a cute phase, leggings, water bottle, upbeat playlists. But it escalated. She started buying expensive gear. New shoes, matching sets, full makeup before class, then long showers afterward. And she always left in a hurry, like she was running toward something, not just away from a long workday. She never invited me, not once, not even jokingly. That should have been the clue. At some point, I started keeping track, not out of paranoia, but because the math wasn't adding up. The gym sessions got longer. Then she started using taxis instead of driving, despite having a perfectly functional car. I noticed a recurring destination on the Uber receipts, a district with mostly hotels and co-working spaces. When I asked why she kept going there, she shrugged and said her yoga studio had moved. Better lighting, she claimed. More natural vibe. Sure. Then there were the missed calls. The ones I'd pick up after one ring, only to hear a quick hang-up or background noise before it disconnected. When I'd ask about them, she'd feign confusion. Must be a spammer. Glitchy line. You know how T-Mobile is. But the worst was the int asterisk Macy or the lack of it. We'd gone from passionate to polite, from forehead kisses to friendly hugs. Her touch, once casual and constant, turned mechanical, like she was checking a box. Every time I reached for her, I felt her flinch before she relaxed. Her lips became a wall, still warm, but empty. And every attempt I made to talk about it was brushed aside. I'm just tired. Deadlines are insane. It's not you, it's just everything. Everything. That was the word she used to cover nothing. It's strange, the way people unravel. It never happens all at once. It's threads. Tiny, quiet threads. Coming loose in places you're too distracted to look at until the whole thing's hanging by a single stitch. I didn't confront her. Not then. I wasn't ready. I needed more than suspicion. I needed facts. Something undeniable. Because the moment you open that door, the moment you say, I think you're lying to me, you can't unsay it. You cross into a different version of your life, and the old one is gone. So I started watching differently. Not in a creepy, obsessive way. Not cameras or trackers or reading her messages. Just patterns. A shift in behavior. Times she'd leave the room when a message came in. Nights when she took longer than usual grabbing something from the store. The way she'd stop talking mid-sentence if I entered the room. I noticed the smart lock notifications too. Our door was synced to an app. I started getting alerts I hadn't paid attention to before. Entries after midnight, or unlocks when she said she was still at work. Once, I checked the log and saw she'd left, come back, then left again, all within a 2-hour window. When I asked what she'd been up to, she said, just driving. Needed to clear my head. Maybe she was telling the truth. But the version of her I believed in wouldn't have had to lie about something so simple. One night, I got home late from a work dinner and saw our water usage spike on the home dashboard. That kind of thing usually happened when she was doing laundry or filling the tub. But the time didn't line up. She said she'd gone straight to bed. The logs showed a 20-minute spike at 10:52 p.m. Enough for a full shower. A long one. It's amazing what you can learn from data. Still, I kept it all to myself. I didn't accuse. I didn't pry. I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, I was preparing for the fall. Then the slip happened. A Tuesday evening. She was sitting in the kitchen, laptop open, earbuds in, supposedly in a Zoom call. I'd walked past her on the way to grab my charger when I heard it. Laughter. A man's voice. Familiar, even. Not in a friendly way. In a heard it at a holiday party kind of way. It was her boss. She hadn't muted the call when she ended it. The screen was off, but the audio still ran. I paused just outside the hallway, completely still, letting the sound wash over me. He was laughing. Not politely, warmly, comfortably. Then came music in the background, soft jazz, maybe from a speaker system. And then a sound I'll never forget. The distant clink of glasses and the soft murmur of someone saying, just a sec. She's in the bathroom. I waited. Then her voice returned, too close to the mic, like she'd leaned in. Okay, where were we? She said, followed by another burst of laughter. I stepped back, quietly, careful not to make the floorboards creak. She wasn't on a Zoom call. She was on speakerphone. In a hotel room. With him. That was the moment I changed. Not exploded. Not raged. Just changed. It was like a switch flipped. My denial snapped in half, and the pieces fell cleanly into place. I walked outside onto the porch, phone in hand, and just stood there, letting the cool air anchor me. I didn't feel anger. Not yet. Just confirmation. A name to go with the scent. A voice to match the jacket. I slept on the couch that night. She didn't ask why. In the days that followed, I started collecting things, not to punish but to understand. Emails, calendar events, Uber logs, photos from the cloud I hadn't seen before. There was more than just him. A second name. A third location. My stomach turned as I realized it was bigger than one affair. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I had everything. I don't know when I stopped hoping I was wrong and started accepting that I wasn't. Maybe it was the hotel call. Maybe it was the second name I uncovered. Or maybe it was that strange numbness that settles in after enough small betrayals pile up and start to look like a pattern. No longer random, no longer deniable. I became methodical, quiet, focused. I started keeping a digital folder. Nothing dramatic, just a series of files tucked away under a benign label on my work laptop. I titled it Q3 Docs. No one would ever look twice. Inside, I kept *TS, audio clips, PDFs, and date stamp logs. I wasn't building revenge. I was building understanding. And I needed to see how deep this hole really went. Turned out very deep. The first solid lead came from a shared cloud account we'd set up years ago, originally for vacation photos, tax documents, that kind of thing. I hadn't checked it in months, maybe a year. But when I logged in, I saw it had been recently used. The last modified file? A batch upload from Paige's phone. It was titled IMG_Club Lofset. When I opened it, I expected maybe a party gallery or *TS with friends. Instead, I found 26 photos, all taken in a hotel suite, dim lighting, champagne flutes, turned-down sheets. They weren't obscene, but they were unmistakably *mate. Paige was in a silk dress I didn't recognize, holding a glass of wine, sitting barefoot on the couch with someone else's blazer draped over her shoulder. The same initials on the cuff. M.R. In the mirror reflection of one photo, I spotted him. Her boss. That one hit harder than I expected. I didn't even blink. I just dragged the files into my archive. The next layer came from the Uber receipts. We'd shared the same account for convenience, especially when we were both drinking or heading to the airport. Most of her rides were ordinary downtown restaurants, the yoga studio, our place. But there was a repeating address. A boutique loft hotel on the edge of the Mission District. The name was discreet, no big signage, the kind of place that specialized in anonymity. 7 trips in the past 2 months. Always between 9:30 and 10:45 p.m. Always on yoga nights. Always leaving from within a few blocks of our house. I cross-referenced the hotel with our joint credit card. Nothing popped up. She hadn't used our card. But that's when I noticed a spike on her personal one. Bookings at restaurants close to the Loft Hotel, midweek charges from a spa down the block, and one particularly bold transaction. Doubletree, premium suite upgrade. I looked at the date. That was the night she told me she was working late due to a project audit. I found the door entry logs next. We'd upgraded to a smart lock last year, mostly for convenience and safety. It kept time-stamped records of who entered and when. I downloaded the access report and stared at the spreadsheet until the numbers blurred. But then the pattern emerged. Entries past midnight, sometimes back-to-back. Once at 2:14 a.m. Another at 5:56 a.m. Her explanation? I crashed at Amanda's place, then came home early to change before work. But Amanda lived across town. Paige would have had to drive past our house just to get there. None of this was smoking G*N material on its own. But piece by piece it formed a mosaic. A timeline. A map of betrayal drawn in receipts and reservation numbers and shower steam. Then came the second man. His name was buried in a Venmo note for the sweet wine glass. From a user I didn't recognize. I clicked through the profile, saw his full name, and my heart stuttered. He wasn't just some guy. He was someone we'd met. Once. Briefly. At a co-working mixer Paige invited me to months ago. She'd introduced him as just a designer friend. She ran into sometimes at the shared space. I'd shaken his hand. We'd laughed about mutual friends. He wore a linen shirt and boots that looked like he cared too much. I found his face again in a group photo on Instagram. Same guy. tagged in a story she reposted about a design sprint with the dream team. I scanned the background and saw her there, Paige, smiling, tucked into a corner booth beside him, her hand resting lightly on his knee. The caption read, "Productive chaos with these legends." It made me want to throw my phone across the room. But I didn't. I saved the post, added it to the folder. The next few days I moved like a ghost. We still ate dinner together, still exchanged goodnight pecks, still asked about each other's day with performative warmth. But I was detached now, like I was watching a play I already knew the ending to. She noticed the shift. I know she did. One night she asked, "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" I looked up from my laptop. "Just tired." She nodded, biting her lip. "Same." I think, in her mind, she believed the cover-up was still working. That she could manage this chaos like she managed everything. Through logistics, charm, and omission. That I was the same trusting, loyal version of myself who took everything at face value. But that version of me was long gone. Then came the voicemail. I almost missed it. Paige had left her phone charging in the living room while she showered. A call came in, muted, no caller ID. Then the voicemail alert. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The transcriptions were automatic on her iOS. I glanced at the screen and read the first line. "Hey babe. Just wanted to say I had a great time last night." The rest cut off. I didn't listen. I didn't have to. I took a **T and added it to the folder. Time-stamped. Dated. Not for confrontation. For closure. I was ready. The confrontation came 3 days later. It wasn't planned. We were having dinner, something easy, roasted chicken and salad, sitting at the counter like normal. She was talking about a conference coming up. Said she might have to fly to Seattle for a client workshop. "You'll be staying with the team?" I asked. "Yeah," she replied, not missing a beat. "All company booked. Hotel downtown." She didn't flinch. I set down my fork and looked at her. "That's interesting. I came across your hotel folio from last month, and it said double occupancy." She froze, blinked once. "What? Double occupancy?" I repeated calmly. "It was listed on the reservation you made at the Loft Hotel. The same one you visited 7 times since June. The same one near that wine bar you keep going to on yoga nights. You used your personal card." I checked. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I pushed my chair back, walked into the living room, came back with the folder. A flash drive. One I had labeled in black Sharpie. Clarity. I placed it gently beside her wine glass. Everything's on there. Timeline. Photos. Logs. Receipts. Messages. Both of them. "Both?" she whispered. I nodded. "Your boss. And your co-working friend. The one who likes linen shirts." She stared at the drive like it might explode. Then came the phases I'd expected. Denial. "This isn't what it looks like." Blame. "You were so distant this year. You were always buried in work." Appeals to pity. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was confused. Lonely." Then the threats. Her eyes narrowed. "If you try to use this against me, if you go to my company." I laughed, quiet and humorless. "I'm not going to your company, Paige. You'll handle the consequences yourself." She stood abruptly, knocking over her glass. Wine splattered across the counter like blood in a crime scene. She stormed down the hallway, slamming the guest room door behind her. I didn't chase her. I just cleaned up the mess. I didn't sleep much that night, but I didn't toss and turn either. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the occasional creak of the house. Every once in a while, I thought I heard her moving around in the guest room, opening drawers, pacing, whispering something into her phone. I didn't care. Something had broken, not just between us, but inside me. Not in the explosive, scream and shatter way. No, it was something quieter, colder, a sort of detachment that comes when you've seen enough to stop needing answers. When the truth is no longer a mystery, it's just math. Just gravity. You stop fighting the fall and let it carry you down. The next morning, Paige was in the kitchen before me, hair pulled into a neat bun, dressed like she was headed to the office. But she wasn't eating. Just standing there with her hand wrapped around a mug she clearly hadn't sipped from. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion. Mine probably looked the same, but I felt sharper than I had in weeks. She didn't say good morning. Neither did I. I made coffee, toasted some bread, ate while checking my emails. She cleared her throat. "Liam," she started, voice low and composed. "We need to talk." I looked up slowly. "We did talk. You just didn't like what I said." Her jaw clenched, but she didn't argue. Instead, she sat at the table across from me, folding her hands in that overly careful way people do when they're trying to appear in control. "You blindsided me," she said. "You went behind my back, snooped, collected evidence like I was your enemy." I gave a small laugh. "No, I collected it because you were acting like mine." She looked away, biting her lip. "I didn't want it to come to this," she whispered. "Then you shouldn't have brought strangers into our marriage." "I didn't plan it," she snapped. "It wasn't like that. Things just spiraled." "You spiraled," I corrected, calm but firm. "Repeatedly." She looked like she wanted to cry but was too tired to manage it. "I just wish you had come to me sooner. If you'd felt something was off." I cut her off. "I did come to you. So many times. You just got better at lying." Silence stretched between us. The kind that says everything and nothing at the same time. Eventually, I stood, rinsed my plate, and walked out of the kitchen. Her voice followed me. "So what happens now?" I paused in the hallway, my back to her. "I'm getting my own place. Lawyers already lined up. You'll get a notice soon." "Wait, you're divorcing me?" I turned around slowly. Her eyes were wide like I just slapped her. "You thought I wouldn't?" I asked. "After this." She stood too, suddenly flushed. "I thought you'd at least give us a chance to fix it." "There's nothing left to fix, Paige. You weren't confused. You weren't lost. You were calculated. You lied to my face for months. This wasn't one mistake. This was a second life you were living." Her lip trembled, and for a second I saw the version of her I used to love, the one who cried at indie movies and sang in the car and whispered my name like it meant something. But that version was gone. I walked out the door. That afternoon, I signed a short-term lease on a furnished rental in Santa Cruz. It was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, but it was 3 blocks from the beach, and the air smelled like salt and eucalyptus. When I got the keys, I stood in the middle of the empty living room and just breathed. No wine glasses, no half-truths, no artificial perfume blending with unfamiliar cologne. Just space. Mine. I didn't take much with me. A couple suitcases, my laptop, a stack of books I'd been meaning to read for years. I left the rest at the house, knowing she'd probably spin that as abandonment later. Let her. I didn't need the couch we'd picked together, or the photos she'd curated, or the sheets I no longer trusted. What I needed was distance. I started therapy the following week. Found a guy named Harris, older, ex-military, the kind of person who didn't flinch at silence. He didn't push, just asked questions that cut through the fog. "Do you feel angry?" "Not exactly," I'd said. "Just hollow." He nodded like he understood. "Sometimes betrayal doesn't leave you burning. Sometimes it just drains you, like someone cracked your foundation and let all the heat escape." That stuck with me. I also started running again. Early mornings before the sun fully rose. Just me and the ocean breeze and the rhythmic sound of my feet on pavement. I wasn't trying to outrun anything. I just needed movement, structure, something I could control. Work became remote. I stepped back from my firm, turned down in-person meetings, and took on short-term freelance contracts instead. It was surprisingly freeing. No commute, no forced small talk. Just design and deadlines and clean deliverables. Every night I set my phone to do not disturb. Not to shut people out, just to reclaim silence. For the first time in years, no late-night notifications pulled me into someone else's chaos. My dreams became clearer. My chest felt lighter. Paige sent a letter a few weeks after I moved out. Handwritten. For Pages. Folded neatly inside a pale blue envelope. I didn't open it right away. just placed it on my desk like a forgotten bill. When I finally read it, the tone was familiar. Guilt spun as reflection, regret wrapped in soft excuses. She said she never stopped loving me, that she didn't know how to handle the distance between us, that the affairs weren't about lust, but validation, that she thought I'd given up on us long before she did. It was a well-written lie. I kept the letter, but I never responded. She didn't call. I think she knew better by then. 2 months into the separation, I got a message from someone in her company's HR department. They were doing an internal investigation. Apparently, someone else had reported her supervisor M.R. for inappropriate conduct, workplace boundaries crossed, power imbalances exploited. They asked if I'd be willing to answer a few questions. I declined. I didn't need retribution. Karma would handle that. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. Routine, therapy, long walks. I reconnected with my brother. Started cooking again. Even joined a local book club, just as something to do on Thursday nights. No expectations. That's where I met Chloe. She wasn't flashy or intense. Just honest. Quietly grounded. She didn't ask about my past on our first conversation, and I didn't offer it. We talked about books, podcasts, which cafe in town had the best espresso. It was easy and slow. For once, I didn't need fireworks. I just needed real. We started seeing each other casually, coffee, beach walks, the occasional movie. No drama, no games. Just two people learning how to exist beside each other without pretending. Meanwhile, the divorce moved forward. My lawyer handled most of it. We filed on grounds of infidelity, and with the documentation I'd saved, things moved quickly. No custody battles, no property war. We didn't have kids, just memories. And memories aren't assets. They don't get divided. They just fade. The last time I saw Paige was at the courthouse. She wore gray, simple makeup, no jewelry. She looked smaller than I remembered. She didn't say much. Neither did I. When the judge signed the decree, I didn't feel triumphant. Just done. A quiet ending to a chapter one never thought I'd have to write. I walked out first. Didn't look back. The first morning after the divorce was finalized, I didn't feel different. No lightning strike. No emotional epiphany. Just a quiet, almost sterile clarity. Like when a storm passes and the sky doesn't open into sun. Just settles. Gray. Still. Bearable. I woke up before my alarm and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the pale wall across from me. For a long time, I didn't move. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It just was. No waiting for footsteps in the hall. No voice calling out from the shower. No pretending. I made breakfast. Nothing fancy. Eggs, toast, black coffee. Then I opened the closet and started folding clothes. It's strange how long you hold on to things you never planned to wear again. Shirts bought for dinners that never happened. Hoodies she used to steal when it got cold. I found one of her scarves tucked in the corner of a drawer. Cashmere, dark green, still smelling faintly like the vanilla shampoo she used to claim was eco-conscious but overpriced. I didn't throw it away. I put it in a box labeled past. One of several. I didn't keep the boxes because I missed her. I kept them because grief isn't linear, because memory isn't always kind, and because some days healing looks like acknowledging what was, instead of trying to erase it. That weekend, I finally deleted the old cloud account, the one we used to sync groceries and vacation photos. I backed up what I needed, receipts, documents, a few pictures that meant something beyond us. One, in particular, stayed with me. *T from a trip to Sedona. Both of us on a rock ledge at sunset, our silhouettes framed in amber light. We looked happy. Maybe we were. Maybe we were trying to be. I printed the photo and kept it in a drawer, not for nostalgia, but for context. A reminder that even the beautiful things can break. Life moved on. Santa Cruz felt like a cocoon. The sea breeze, the anonymity, the freedom from routine. I wasn't happy exactly, but I was rebuilding. Not all at once. Quietly, deliberately. Therapy continued. Paris pushed me less now. We mostly talked in loops. Not about Paige anymore, but about what came next. About control. About fear. About learning how to let someone in without flinching. Your trauma doesn't make you weak, he said once. It just means you paid attention. Chloe and I kept seeing each other. Slowly at her pace and mine. No confessions. No status checks. We walked. We shared podcasts. Sometimes we'd go an entire afternoon without touching. Just existing in the same space. And that felt safe in a way I hadn't experienced in years. One night, over tacos and vinyl records, she asked the question I'd been expecting. So, what happened? I didn't deflect. I told her about Paige. Not all the details, but the shape of it. The erosion. The denial. The quiet devastation that follows discovering the person you trusted most was living in two realities. And yours wasn't the one that mattered. She listened. Not like someone waiting to respond. Like someone witnessing. When I finished, she nodded once and said, "Thank you for not editing that." I think that's when I realized I trusted her. Sometime around late October, I got an email from Paige. Subject line, "Closure." I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. It wasn't long. Just a few paragraphs. She said she was in therapy now. That she'd taken a leave from work. That the internal investigation into her supervisor had expanded, and she'd been interviewed multiple times. Apparently, she wasn't the only one involved. She said she wasn't writing to win me back, just to apologize again. She said she finally understood that love isn't just about feelings. It's about respect, attention, and presence. That even when we were physically together, she hadn't shown up for years. And that by the time she realized what she'd lost, it was already broken. She ended the email with, "I hope you're doing better than I deserve." I didn't reply, not because I was angry, not even because I didn't believe her, but because I didn't need the dialogue anymore. Forgiveness, for me, didn't require a two-way exchange. It just required peace. The holidays came, and for the first time in a decade, I didn't fly home to my parents. I stayed in town, helped out at a food drive, went surfing with a neighbor who barely spoke English but knew the waves better than anyone I'd ever met. Christmas morning, I made pancakes for one and watched old movies. No pressure, no facade, no pretending to enjoy something just to keep the illusion alive. It was quiet, but it was honest. By January, Chloe and I were officially something. We didn't label it, but she started leaving her books at my place. I started keeping extra coffee pods for her.